Welcome, everyone. Let's begin tonight with a meditation. You might start with settling into a comfortable posture. That's different for different bodies, but might be some version of sitting with your spine straight, and letting your head lift up through the crown and tilting the chin just a bit, maybe pulling the shoulders back. Just settling into a posture that feels stable and comfortable. Settling into the body. Maybe beginning with a few deep breaths. And slowly letting go on the exhale. Just relaxing into the exhale. On your own time, you may let go of the deep breathing, return to a more natural pattern of breath. And as we meditate, it's nice to have an anchor, kind of home base to return to when the mind gets lost in thought. And a common anchor is the breath. It's always present. It's not too difficult to find often. And sometimes it can be very pleasant. You might let the breath be your anchor for this meditation. Just let attention rest on the breath. And when the mind wanders off, when you wake up, just let attention come back to the breath. Not with any judgment or criticism. It's just a step, a thing to do. The action of meditation is a receiving, a welcoming. You don't have to make the breath arise. It arises on its own. The only thing you need to do is receive that arising breath and welcome it. And even though we sit here with the intention to receive the breath, it's only going to happen some of the time. Maybe a little, maybe a lot, but not all of the time. The mind is inevitably going to go off and do something else. There'll be some agitation, some greed, some thought pattern about worry about something going on at work, daydream, something other than the breath. These things are not bad. You don't need to push them away or be upset. The thing to do when that happens is simply to return to the breath with that welcoming, accepting attitude. How wonderful that the mind woke up and returned to the task at hand. That's great news. And this is the practice, whether you need to do it 10 times or 1,000 times. This is a practice. Us coming home with kindness. One side effect of practicing this way is that the mind tends to quiet down over time. Not always, of course, but that tendency is there. All these patterns of mind that can disturb the mind and pull it around: fear and worry and anger, greed, daydreaming. All these things require energy to sustain them. And if we don't give them energy, we don't give them attention, they start to quiet down. That's why we return the attention to the breath when we notice it's elsewhere. We might notice and see if we can receive the breath a little more fully, see the details a little more clearly. When we look closely, the breath can become this endless flux of sensation, all sorts of change and different things coming and going. Just being present with what is, whatever's arising, however this moment is showing up. It can be okay. Sometimes there's a tendency in meditation to expect certain outcomes or want certain states of mind. That's very understandable, but true peace, true freedom comes from accepting everything just the way it is. Nothing ever needs to be different. You can see the world from that viewpoint, then you're free. And sometimes in meditation, pleasant sensations arise. Perhaps the breath itself has a pleasant feeling to it. Perhaps something like happiness or warmth or love arises. Not always, but sometimes this happens. You might take a look and see if there's any pleasant feelings in the mind in this moment. If that's the case, there's nothing you need to do with them. You can certainly enjoy them as fruits of the practice. It's very skillful to do. It's a lovely little gift you can give yourself. Really enjoy the happiness you're feeling, or the gratitude, or the joy. And if none of those are there, that's okay too. If you'd like, you can continue meditating in this way, or you can simply let go of any effort and just rest in presence, letting whatever arises, arise, and whatever passes away, pass away. Nothing needs to be done, just experience. And in this last minute, you might take some time to appreciate the benefits of your practice here today. However the sit went, whether it was very pleasant, very present, not full of thoughts, or whether it was completely opposite, you might appreciate that your practice here today, the intention you have to sit and to be present, it benefits you. It moves your life in a better direction. And as you change, as you grow, as you become a person that suffers less, so too does that spread to those around you. You might take a moment to appreciate that. Practice is such a gift. It's a gift we give to ourselves and to others. Thank you all. And hi, Stig. Hi, Rev. I didn't get to say hi to you guys earlier. I think I have some announcements today. So Dhammadippa has returned, and she will be doing a sutta contemplation class starting this Friday. It'll be every Friday at 7:30. No experience with the suttas is necessary. On Saturday the 20th, there's a welcome back celebration for Dhammadippa here at the vihara. It's at 10 a.m. If you'd like to attend, please let me know either in person or by email. On August 16th, there's a retreat weekend with Dhammadippa. So if you'd like to sit a nice weekend retreat with her, that's available. And all this stuff can be found online on the website. So right now, in this moment, the world is different from the way it was when I started talking 5 seconds ago. And similarly, the way you all are showing up in this moment is different from 10 seconds ago. Everything is impermanent and everything is in flux. And so it kind of follows from that the way practice manifests, or the way that we implement practice in our lives, should also be in flux, because practice is something that's responsive to the world. It's responsive to how we show up in the world, and it's responsive to what our circumstances are. I see it. There's a kind of flow to practice when we're like really practicing with what's there. It's not something that's static. It's something that's responsive to the world. The world is one way, and practice appears kind of in response to that. And the world changes, something else arises, and practice adapts. It moves. It goes in a different direction. It's like a river flowing downhill. If there's a channel flowing to this side, the river flows that way. If there's a channel flowing to the other side, the river flows to the other side. And the way the river flows is just dependent on the lay of the land, how the world is. And practice should do the same. Practice should flow and change to fit how we're showing up in the world. So there's any number of impermanences. There's any number of things that change from moment to moment. But I really want to talk tonight about one particular aspect of how our practice adapts to the changing way that we show up in the world. There's a line in the suttas that I like that it shows up, I think, in maybe a handful of suttas, although I don't think it has its own sutta specifically to it. There's this line that I like that I think will help illustrate this point. So I'll read a little bit from the Kalama Sutta. This is Anguttara Nikaya 3.65. Reverend Gautama, so this is the Buddha. Reverend Gautama, the monk, the son of the Sakyans, has, while wandering in the coastal country, entered Kesaputta. Good repute of the Reverend Gautama has been spread in this way. Indeed, the Blessed One is thus consummate, fully enlightened, endowed with knowledge and practice, sublime, knower of the worlds, peerless, guide of tameable men, teacher of divine and human beings, which he by himself, through his direct knowledge, understood clearly. He set forth the Dhamma, good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, possessed of meaning in the letter, complete in everything, and he proclaims the holy life that is perfectly pure. So this line in here that I want to highlight, talking about the Buddha teaching the Dhamma, how the Dhamma is the Dhamma is good in the beginning, the middle, and the end. When I first heard this, I didn't really have any way to understand this other than just kind of just flowery language. But the way I understand it now, I think it's helpful to the point I'm trying to make. So the path of practice that we have, the progress along the path is really just our ability to shift into different viewpoints of the world. So we come to practice, we all come to practice in the same place. We all come to practice from the same viewpoint of seeing the world as a separate self. But our progress along this path is our ability to shift out of that into other viewpoints that are more helpful and generate less suffering. And so this line here, the way about the Dhamma that's good in the beginning, middle, and end, the way I understand that is to refer to the different viewpoints that we encounter along the practice. So the good Dhamma is good in the beginning. So it's good from the viewpoint at the beginning of practice. It's good in the middle. So it's good from the perspective we have kind of further along the path. And it's good at the end. It's good from the perspective of an enlightened being. This is just my interpretation of this this line. This is the way I understand it. Others might see it differently. I think it's really helpful to understand that, understand it in this way. So the Dhamma is the Dhamma, but our perspective shifts along the way. So um, it's helpful to factor this dynamism into practice. We don't want to um, come to the Dhamma and have some understanding and say it's this and it's always going to be this, and not have it change along the way as we grow and mature and understand things deeper. We have this great tendency to create form around the Dhamma, create this intellectual structure. And it's really good. It's really helpful to do that, but it's not something to get stuck in. It's not something to make solid and reify. It's something that flows and changes over time as we learn more. Knowledge is not static, and as we open up to these different viewpoints along the path, we should be open to a changing understanding of the Dhamma. And this understanding is, I think, applicable to the entire path. Like any facet of the Dhamma we might come across has these levels to it. I want to talk about one thing in particular to illustrate what I'm trying to get across. So I'll explain this concept in terms of kindness. Kindness is very good Dhamma. It's good in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. When we come to practice, the viewpoint that we have is that I am this body and I am this mind, and everything else is something separate. There's a division between this and everything else. And kindness from that viewpoint has something of the flavor to it of being that something I should do for me. So it's something that gives me something. It's something that makes me feel good in terms of who I am. It makes me kind of fit this self-concept I have of being a kind person or a good Buddhist or a good human being, or however you language it. It's something that's concrete and transactional sometimes. And so it's something that we do for ourselves. And, of course, there's the component of doing something for others in it too, but we're getting something for it in terms of ourselves. So it might be something like, we might see kindness as something like, you're walking down the street and you choose to wave hi to the person that's walking past you. Or you might choose to kind of intentionally speak kindly to someone when you're having a difficult conversation or something like that. And we also see practice in terms of this kindness too. Practice is something that I do for me. I practiced this way for many years. That's how I came to practice. It was something that fixed my problems. It helped me feel better. It changed me in ways that I thought I needed to be changed. And all these things are skillful. It's very good to do all these things, but this is one view of kindness. And so as we practice, as we start to open up to the idea that this viewpoint of being stuck in this body and this mind is not the only way to see the world, we can come along to another viewpoint where instead of there being a division between this body and this mind and the other world, there's no division between anything in existence. And so our sense of self or our concept of what we are expands greatly. And perhaps we can be everything in existence. This is the viewpoint in the middle. This is the second viewpoint we come to. And so if we're open to it, if we don't have this static view of kindness as being the kind of concrete and transactional thing that I described, we can see the Dhamma of kindness that's good in the middle. And from this viewpoint of this kind of larger existence, what that looks like is that something of the flavor of like this body and this mind should act in service of the world as a whole, of this great being that I am. And when we act with kindness that way, these like self-oriented motivations that I was that often come up start to dissipate. When we're acting from the view at the beginning, the kindness has a flavor of self to it, and so it's easy for the mind to slip in these kind of unskillful motivations too. Like this was big in my practice for a while. I would say, like, for many years, I didn't really consider myself a kind person. When I came to practice, eventually I kind of came around to that. Um, I was very lucky to have good teachers that embodied that. And so I started to see myself as kind. And I played that out in the world and I acted in that way. And I did that for some number of years before I realized that often what was happening was that I was being kind for a reason. So it was a transactional thing for me, not intentional, but I would be kind to someone with the expectation or the hope that, they would be kind to me in return, or perhaps they would, do something for me, or feel a certain way about me or something like that. That was a pretty ugly thing to understand, but that's what I was doing for many years. So when we come to kindness from the second viewpoint, in the middle of being this greater whole, those self-oriented motivations start to dissipate. When we act from this place of interdependence, where your hurts and my hurts are seen in some sense on the same footing, that sort of thing just, like, it doesn't make sense from that viewpoint. And the barriers we put up to being kind to people start to drop away. We have so many, the mind is so good at coming up with reasons not to be kind to people. Just, oh, this thing that you need, well, I have it, and if I give it to you, then I won't have it. And that doesn't feel good sometimes. Or maybe it would take time to help you, and I'm busy. Or just, I don't really like you so much, so maybe I don't want to be kind to you. The mind is very good with coming up with reasons to do that. And from the second viewpoint, where we're seeing interdependence clearly, we start to become aware of how much we affect the world. Because when we're seeing from the first viewpoint, we're very focused on this body and this mind, this being. But most of the effects of our actions don't take place in this body and this mind. They take place out in the world and other people. So when we're not stuck in this viewpoint, we see that much more clearly. I remember having this realization of how big of an impact I have on the world, and it's being like very fresh in my mind. And I was having a conversation with somebody, and I don't remember what the conversation was about, but somehow Godzilla came up. The like giant humanoid lizard that roams around Tokyo, like knocking things over and crushing cars and stuff. And like I'm sure a lot of his destruction was unintentional. He's just like so big and moving around and hitting things, not on purpose. But anyway, so this came up in conversation, and I had the epiphany that, oh, this is me. I am Godzilla. I like run around the world like having all these effects that I have no intention of doing. I'm just like completely oblivious to what I'm doing. So we can see that from this larger viewpoint, and when we see that, this kindness that we maybe originally came to as something kind of discrete, maybe you do 1 or 5 or 10 times a day, it becomes something very different. It gets when you see that you're always affecting the world, not just in these little discrete moments, you really want that effect to be good, because it's so powerful. It's happening all the time. And so kindness gets channeled into practice. Like you want to purify this body and that mind, so that you're always kind of putting out good energy or kindness into the world, rather than just focusing on these like very specific events. There's a good sutta that really gets to this point. This is the Settaka Sutta, the Acrobat Sutta. This is SN 4719. This is the Buddha speaking to a group of monks. He says, "Once upon a time, monks, a bamboo acrobat, sitting himself on his bamboo pole, addressed his assistant Medakathalika. 'Come you, my dear Medakathalika, and climbing up the bamboo pole, stand on my shoulders.' And Medakathalika says, 'Okay, master.' And he climbs up the bamboo pole and stands on his shoulders. So then the acrobat says to his assistant, "You look after me, my dear Metacathalika, and I'll look after you." Thus, with us looking after one another, guarding one another, we'll show off our craft, receive some payment, and safely climb down this bamboo pole. That being said, the assistant Metacathalika said this to the bamboo acrobat: "That will not do at all, master. You look after yourself, master, and I will look after myself. Thus, with each of us looking after ourselves, guarding ourselves, we'll show off our craft, receive some payment, and safely climb down the bamboo pole. That's the right way to do it." And so, of course, they go ask the Buddha. And the Buddha says, this is what you should do. Just like the assistant Metacathalika said to her master, "I will look after myself," so should you, monks, practice the establishment of mindfulness. So practice. I will look after, you should also practice the establishment of mindfulness by saying, "I will look after others." So looking after oneself, one looks after others. Looking after others, one looks after oneself. And so this is how practice is seen from that viewpoint. You practice for yourself, but that practice is purifying your your stream of body and mind and what you put out into the world. And so it's making it better, more skillful, more wholesome, and that's spreading to others. And that's how you look after others. So as we practice further and we see what there is to be seen, we come to a further viewpoint. And if we're open to it, we can see the Dhamma of kindness that's good in the end. Whereas before there was a viewpoint that, I am this body and this mind, and then the viewpoint that I am all of existence. The final viewpoint encompasses all of existence and all of non-existence as well. So there's no division anywhere. And from this viewpoint, kindness also changes. Both of the previous viewpoints, kindness was expressed as something that should be done, whether it's for the benefit of me or the benefit of the whole. But from this third viewpoint, there's no should. The kindness just happens. This body and this mind simply manifests kindness. It can do no other thing. So these three viewpoints in practice, beginning, middle, and end. From these three viewpoints, we see kindness in three different ways, three different manifestations. It's always the same motion of coming together, the same movement towards unity and wholeness, but it's understood and expressed differently. So I've kind of put these viewpoints forth as something, a kind of linear path that's monotonic, and you kind of always go forward. But I guess there's some truth to that, and if you take like a very broad view of your path. But in reality, in the day-to-day, how it works day to day, it's not that linear. Like one day you may be feeling or seeing the world very expansively, and you may have some access to these two further viewpoints. And then the next day you may wake up on the wrong side of the bed, and you may be very you may be seeing the world from a very, very self-centered point of view. It's just how it goes. And so as our viewpoints change from day to day, or even hour to hour, or minute to minute, if we're stuck on this view of kindness, it's not going to be appropriate. We're not going to be using the framework that fits whatever motivation we're feeling in that moment. There's not going to be this flow to practice. So all of practice is like this. It's not just kindness. It's how you feel about being present in the moment changes as you practice over time. How you understand impermanence or anatta or emptiness, or how you implement any of the Eightfold Path, or how you understand dependent origination. It all has this kind of these levels to it, these different viewpoints. I think when you practice, if you practice with the Dhamma as a kind of living thing that can move and flow, there's I don't really know how to say this too well, but there's it can kind of pull you deeper. So I talked about it earlier as like you kind of open up to further viewpoints, and then you can practice in new ways. But I think it goes the other way too. Like you can let your practice pull you into these deeper viewpoints, but only if you're open to it, only if it's a living thing with room for interpretation. There's a kind of famous phrase or understanding in Zen called beginner's mind. I have a quote from Shunryu Suzuki, the author of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, a very famous book. He says, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the experts, there are few. And the thing is, like we really like to be experts. It feels really good. Like it gives us a sense of mastery or even like dominance of the world to feel like we know. But the world is always changing. We don't know. Like we can't. So the beginner's mind is really the way to go, to understand that, what you understood in the moment before, what worked for you very well, may or may not be applicable now, may need some change to it. When the practice is approached this way, there's this lovely element of curiosity and sometimes even play to it, which is just this really good way to come to practice. The mind really likes to explore the world. I think that's what minds are built to do. And so I'm sure we've all had periods where practices felt very like stagnant and static and like nothing is changing, but this is the kind of antidote to that. So if we're closed and rigid about what practice is, we're not going to be open to seeing the deeper truths, and we're not going to flow with the world as it presents itself to us. But if we can be flexible, we can let our practice flow to meet the needs of the world. We can let our exploration kind of pull us on towards awakening. That's what I would offer today. Thank you all.